Okay, we're back. This is Sports VKC. I'm Rustin Dodd of the Kansas City Star alongside Sam Mellinger and Chris Fickett over on the board. Okay, we've just been talking about kind of the bigger question marks heading into spring training, but let's do the Sports BKC roster breakdown.
All right.
So this is what I'm going to do. Royals right now have 58 players headed to Surprise, Arizona.
That's a
Pitchers
lot.
and catchers report on February 18th. The first workout, February 23rd at the facility in Surprise. So let's go. We don't need to talk about all these guys, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you by position group the guys that are headed to Surprise, and you just give me your thoughts, one or two, on the pitchers, the infielders, the outfielders, and we'll just go like that. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay. Let's start with these are just guys on the 40-man roster. So I'm going to list off, this is alphabetical order, the guys some of you may have heard of, some of you may have not, the guys that'll be down there. They've got 18 pitchers on the 40-man. Let's just list them off. All right, left-hander Scott Alexander, reliever. Right-hander Miguel Almonte, top prospect. Tim Collins, coming off Tommy John surgery. Wade Davis, probably the best reliever in baseball. Danny Duffy, question marks around him. Then Brian Flynn, they got him for Aaron Crow last year. Kelvin Herrera, he'll be in the bullpen. Luke Hochevar, another bullpen piece. Ian Kennedy, new starter. Chris Medlin, likely in the rotation, but a swingman guy. Alec Mills, Joaquim Soria, Matthew Strom, Jason Vargas. He's coming back from Tommy John. He won't be available till probably the late summer. Then you got Yordano Ventura, Edinson Volquez, Chris Young, and Kyle Zimmer.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. So, all right. So those are the guys on the roster heading to spring training. Sam, thoughts
Let's
on
go.
the pitchers? What comes to mind when I list all those names off?
I mean, the most interesting guy on that list to me is Danny Duffy, just because how many people, like, when they think about Danny Duffy, one of the first five things that they think about is not going to be that he was their best starting pitcher in 2014. Like, that's really easy for people to forget, right? But it's true. And he was until the kind of middle of September when, at the time, and this is kind of weird to think back on, but at the time, the Royals in some ways were allowing it to be presented like he was just kind of like lost his confidence, lost his mojo. But really, he was dealing with an injury. Yeah. And I get why they were doing that. They didn't want to, give up any secrets or whatever going into the playoffs. But it really put Duffy in I shouldn't say bad. It was a bad spot. They put him in a tough spot doing that. But
he essentially had to sort of not lie outright, but sort of fib about his health status for about a month.
In a way, yes. And not just that, but in a way that made him come off as weak, or in a way that made him come off as the team doesn't have confidence in him. And it was just a really hard spot for him. And, we didn't really, there was so much going on at the time. I don't think, really a lot of people gave it a second thought, which allowed the kind of charade to go on. But anyway, I mean, to me, he's the most interesting guy on that of the 18 that you just mentioned, because I believe in Dan. Like, I think that guy is really talented. He's obviously talented, and I think that he has a good, work ethic. He has a good, commitment to pitching, which I know people sometimes bring up that he walked away from the game a few years back. But, I think since then, what has he done to give you any doubt? And, I think that he could be a monster out of the bullpen if they did that. I mean, absolute monster. Not Wade Davis, not like an alien, but I think he could be a terrific weapon out of the bullpen. But I also think that he's got, something in him to be in the rotation. I mean, 2014 was not that long ago. Yeah. I think he can be that guy again.
We know what the Royals' formula is, and with the bullpen and how effective it's been. But I do wonder if he's probably the one guy outside of their top three starters that actually probably has. I mean, he's like a legitimate number 3 starter in the major leagues if he's clicking.
Yeah, if he's good.
And Chris Young and Chris Medlin, at their point in their careers, they might not be that. So I do wonder if the Royals should be thinking more in terms of thinking of Danny Duffy as a starter until he proves that he's not.
Not that Ned matches up, in the pen, but who's their lefty then? If Duffy turns out to be that guy in the rotation, you got to have a lefty, right?
Yeah,
Ned would say maybe not, but
I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think that traditionally you'd like to have one, but their guys are so good against Wade Davis will get lefties out.
Yeah.
Kelvin Herrera, they don't have problems getting lefties out, and we mentioned Tim Collins, but if I remember right, he's got a reverse split, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like don't righties hit him?
Yeah,
like he's tougher on righties than lefties.
There's a couple of names I haven't mentioned because they're on the non-roster invite, but John Lannon was at AAA last year. He's a lefty. Numbers have been bad the last couple of years, but he's only 31. Was an effective starter for a while, and if you go by the kind of the adage that ineffective starters can sometimes turn into effective relievers, he's a guy that I would watch for in camp to see if he could give him something. And Brian Flynn was pretty good last year in spring training, and in fact probably would have made the team, but then Ryan Madsen sort of came out of nowhere and was great. So I guess he's another left-handed guy that could give him something at least until Tim Collins comes back. Okay, let's go catchers really quick.
Okay.
Not a lot of intrigue here, but we do have Tony Cruz, Drew Butera, and then Sal Perez. Obviously, I guess the question is who's going to be the backup. But what do you?
Drew Butera caught the final out of the World Series, so I think. I don't know.
Not wild. But has donated the ball to Hall of Fame.
He could have held that and used that as ransom to get the backup job. Like, I'm not giving this ball up unless.
I also sort of have a hot take about Drew Butera and that final out.
Let it rip.
Yeah, I've often it was a late strike call the entire thing. I feel like they botched. Now, this botched is too strong a word, but if that's like the image of them winning the World Series for all time, it wasn't the smoothest of final outs. Because if you watch it, it was a late strike call.
There was a delayed reaction.
Drew Butera then proceeds to turn around to thank the umpire. And I don't know if he was thanking him for the strike call, maybe to a point or something, but he turns around to the umpire and sort of like says something to the umpire. In the meantime, Conforto, who I think was the guy that struck out, is walking across the plate, and Butera turns around and doesn't see him, runs right into Conforto. So it's already sort of like okay, this is not going well. And then he runs out, and then Wade Davis and Butera on the all-time like jump hugs, they did not really nail it.
Right.
So I mean, obviously they had to pinch run for Sal Perez, and Ned Yost even joked about after the game how he felt bad that Sal wasn't out there. But I'm just saying,
if you look at our photo of the jump, the first guy running out to the mound is Sal. He almost got there in time to.
From a purely aesthetic way, that was not the most pretty end of the World Series.
Maybe like what we're saying here is in part one. The reasons to worry or whatever, like I talked about complacency, but maybe the not nailing the instant celebration, that's what will drive them all off season to 96 wins and winning the World Series in 4 instead of 5.
Okay. They could get Bruce Weber to coach him up on how to celebrate
right. But then not be able to use it.
Yeah,
that was weird.
One thing, this is sort of inside baseball, but if this is a baseball podcast, Tony Cruz has options available. So if he could go to AAA Omaha to start the season, so Butera probably has the inside track, at least from that perspective.
For sure.
Okay, let's go to infielders. I'm going to list them off here. Christian Colon, Chesler Cuthbert, Alcides Escobar, Eric Mosmer, Omar Infante, Raul Mondesi, Kendrys Morales, I guess you can count him as an infielder, Mike Moustakas, and Ramon Torres. Kind of a surprising guy that you forget is on the 40-man roster.
So, people kind of forget, I think, maybe people listening to this podcast haven't forgotten, but I think people kind of forget how bad Alcides Escobar was offensively last year. I mean, he was pretty rotten. And, it was covered up by, obviously that the team was so good. And also like the sort of Esky magic thing, like it became part of the, I don't want to say the joke, but part of the story about how does this guy improve the team so much. And the answer was he didn't. The pitching was just happened to be better when he hit leadoff. But I think I bring this up because I think that there's more in Alcides Escobar. And, you know, when I talk about like the Royals are no longer a young team, but they're not yet an old team, like he's one of the guys that I have in mind. You know, because I think he'll be like 29 maybe.
If he hasn't turned 29, he'll be 29 before July 1st of this year. I'm not sure when his birthday is. But he'll be the majority of the year this year. He'll be 29.
So he's getting there, and he's got a lot of baseball on him. You know, I mean, he played 162 a couple years ago. He would have played 162 last year if not for you know, the slide. But I think that, and so maybe this is just, I can't get a couple years ago out of my head, but I think there's more production in him, and I think that he's got some gap, you know, sort of line drive power in him if he gets going kind of in the right. To me, he's very much a rhythm player, and so like when he's in a good rhythm, it's, you know, if he's really good on Monday and Tuesday, I feel like there's a good chance that he's going to be pretty good Thursday and Friday. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of I guess people call him streak hitters, but I think a streak hitter is Mike Moustakas a little bit more, but for some reason. But anyway, I think that there's more production in Alcides Escobar. He's the guy that really sticks out on that list to me. Also, Eric Hosmer. We talked in part one about, you know, the guys that had career years, and, you know, the need to make up that production if they don't have another career year. I actually think that Eric Hosmer can be better. I know he has that weird, like you mentioned, that weird like Brett Saberhagen thing where he's been a lot better in odd years than even years. But I think he's got a lot more in him. And I think he's going to be like 26. I think he was 25 last year. And I think that Haas is like an enormous talent. I think he's athletic. So he'll stretch singles into doubles. He'll, you know, he's got that gap power. He's got enough power to get it out of Kauffman Stadium. I really believe that he may be, and I thought this was true last year when he was just killing it through about the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. I thought that was his superstar breakout, and you know, he still had a very good year, but I thought it was going to be even better than that. But I believe in that guy, and I believe in his talent, and I also believe in his work ethic, and I think we may be able to see. I think he may be even better in 16 than 15.
How old was Alex Gordon when he had the year where he dominated?
The dominate.
I feel like he was right around 26.
I'm gonna look it up.
And not that Eric Hosmer has had the rough, you know, first couple years of his career that Alex Gordon had, but he's 26. They generally say in baseball, kind of your peak years are 26 to 28 now. Mm-hmm. He's going right into that prime. So
Alex Gordon dominated the year that he turned 27. His birthday is in February. His birthday might be today, actually.
It is Alex Gordon Day in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah. So that he turned 27. I don't know when Haas's birthday. It's in October.
So he's 26 already, I think.
So yeah,
or we'll turn 27 at the end of the year, maybe. But he's 26 now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the outfielders. On the 40-man alphabetical order: Jorge Bonifacio, Lorenzo Cain, Jared Dyson, Brett Eibner, Raymond Fuentes, Alex Gordon, Terrence Gore, Jose Martinez, AAA legend, Paulo Orlando, and Bubba Starling.
So do you remember that time that Alex Gordon signed a $72 million contract and somebody bought him lunch?
Yeah.
I'm always going to remember that. That is so, like, oh, man, there's so much about that. I don't know. Like, I think that Lorenzo Cain is the best player on that list, followed, I think, pretty closely by Alex Gordon. The thing about Lorenzo Cain, there was a lot of people, this is easy to forget now, but going into 2015, there were a lot of people that thought 2014 was a fluke. And I remember writing about this actually in spring training, and a lot of it was based on this is inside baseball, but like you said, this is a
BABIP?
baseball.
Did he have a very high BABIP?
He did, but his BABIP, which is batting average on balls in play, commonly used, I think, incorrectly in baseball to like say somebody got lucky or unlucky. Anyway, it was very high. I forgot the number. It was very high, and but he's always had a big BABIP, and I think that part of it is his approach to the plate, and you know that he runs like the Dickens, when he leads the league or is in the top 5, top 10 in infield hits all the time.
And he doesn't strike out much.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So anyway, I bring that up to say that like as much as we and this is one I got right actually. I wrote that I thought that he could have a big year last year, but as much as we talk about how like he can't be as good as he just was, we were saying that, or at least a lot of people were saying that a year ago. And now look, like he's a year older. I think he turned 30, right? This offseason or maybe last year.
He'll be 30 this season.
He'll be 30 this year. So, he's getting to that point where, you would expect the diminishment to start at some point. But look, he's still a terrific player. And he showed more power, and there's no reason to think that will slow down at age 30. So, they've got 2 of their 3 spots occupied by stars, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at the rest of the guys on that group real quick, I am interested to see. There's not a lot of separation between their second tier outfielders, at least to this point. I mean, one interesting thing is Bonifacio. We talk about how old Bubba Starling is. He's 23. Bonifacio is the same age, or will be this season. They're both 20. Will be 23 this year. And then you've got Eibner 27, Martinez 27, Raymond Fuentes 25. So it seems like any of those guys, you could be your 4th or 5th outfielder for a few weeks, and you could probably get by with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they have pretty good depth at the outfield position, considering that's also where they seem like, they have 2 all-stars.
They do, yeah. And all those guys would end up playing right field, obviously, like barring an injury. But it's funny, like you mentioned those guys, go through the names again. It's Bonifacio, Eibner, Fuentes, Starling, right?
Yeah.
Out of those 4, like it is entirely likely that in 3 years, just say, not even that long, but in 3 years, one of those guys is going to be like a really good player. Yeah. 2 of them are going to be terrible. Like, just not, maybe one of them's not even in baseball. And then one of them will be a 4th, 5th outfielder for a long time. It's just how it works.
Yep. Okay. Let's, all right. That's a 40-man. So now we're down to the non-roster invites. I think we've got, 12. There's 18 of these guys. So let's do the pitchers first. Now we're getting to the point where some of these names you may have not heard of. But let's do – all right, so it's Christian Benford, decent kind of mid-tier pitching prospect, pitched in the Futures game. Jonathan Ziedzik, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dylan G, minor league deal in the offseason. David Huff, he's a veteran, been around a while. John Lannon, we mentioned him earlier. Aroni Nina, Brooks Pounders, he's been in the organization for a while. Sam Selman, left-hander, and Chen-Ming Wang, kind of the veteran pickup of the offseason. He's 36. What comes to mind? Any of these guys, I think Dylan G obviously is the name that stands out, but what's your take on this group of guys?
Well, like G and Wong, and to a lesser extent, I guess Landon, like those are guys that are, excuse me, those are like this year's Ryan Madsen. You know, like those are the, this doesn't cost us anything. Maybe he can be really good for us kind of thing. And so I've always thought, and this is something the Royals, it's something that every team in the Royals situation should do. Every team that, is in the bottom half or whatever in revenue needs to, it's like a lottery ticket. You buy a lot of them and, maybe you hit. But, Benford is, I guess, kind of one of the guys that sticks out to me in that. I mean, he's been a guy that they've been, just been sort of a steady prospect. Like people have never raved about him, but he's always been kind of a solid guy that the Royals have felt like they could count on. And, at some point, and it may be this year, but at some point he'll be kind of a depth guy for the rotation.
Yeah, like maybe, you could see there being an injury, and he comes in and makes 2 or 3 starts in a row.
Like a better Aaron Brooks.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's a good comp, as they say. I think.
And also, Brooks Pounders has the second worst name of any Royals pitcher in the system, behind only Josh Blewett.
Yeah, Dylan G, I think actually there is some upside there because 2 things. Dave Island actually pointed him out without even anybody bringing him up at FanFest as a guy to watch. But, he was a good starting pitcher for the Mets for about a 4-year span. granted it's in the National League, but his ERA was under 4 kind of consistently, and he wasn't as good the last couple of years, but he didn't necessarily lose his spot for production or for performance. I mean, when you're going to be in the same organization as Matt Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, and all those just like beasts of pitchers, just wasn't really room for him in the Mets rotation. I don't know how his stuff translates to the bullpen or a one-inning guy or that kind of stuff, but talent-wise, I think he's a good pickup on a minor league deal for sure.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, catchers. These guys, let's do this real quick. Zane Evans, Cam Gallagher, he's been in the system for a while, and Parker Morin. So
I don't know anything about any of those guys.
Cam
Those
Gallagher,
are guys to catch, bullpen sessions,
they'll
right?
be catching at spring training.
Yeah.
Cam Gallagher, I think he's been in the system for a while. I think decent defensive guy, but I'm not even sure what levels those guys are going to be.
Russ is making this up. I don't think.
Yeah.
Really
You know what's funny? Like, we were just talking about this. I guess it was off air, right? But like, and some of this may bleed back into when I was like covering baseball full time. But certainly it wasn't that long ago, maybe like 5 years ago, where I knew as much about like these guys, the non-roster invites, as the big leaguers. Like that was part of when you're watching the Royals, like you needed to watch like the play-by-play of Wilmington and Omaha and like all these other things. Like the prospects were the entire thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like now, I don't know when that started to change. Probably about 4 years ago. But like a lot of I know a lot of some of them more than it appears. When I called him Josh Blewett instead of Scott Blewett, I realized that I blew that one, didn't I? But like you hear about like Nolan Watson or Foster Griffin or like these guys, but you don't really. I feel like we were knee deep in prospects 5 years ago covering this team, and it's just completely different. Like, who are these guys? They're not better than Alex Gordon, so whatever.
It seemed weird. For a while there, it would seem like there would be a guy every year or 2 or 3 that would get invites, and that was sort of a story, just one of their top prospects. But I don't even think. I mean, Bubba Starling he's on the 40-man now, obviously, but he was at camp last year. So was Mondesi, I believe. So nobody really even profiles as that guy. But real quick, infielders also be at spring training. Orlando Calixte. I think they might. Something happened with him in the offseason. I think they either.
Didn't he get left off before
he got DFA'd and then picked up again. Yeah. But Dusty Coleman, he's back. Cody Decker was a pickup in the offseason. And Hunter Dozier, former first-round pick, will be at spring training as well. I think it's a big year for Dozier. He sort of had a down year offensively last year. I think he was at Northwest Arkansas most of the year. Didn't perform all that well. He's 24 or will be this year. So
he's one of those guys, like, you can hear very different opinions on him based on like which scout you talk to, because and my assumption on that is that he's probably a guy that looks the part, but because he is a pretty big dude, so he should have some power in there. He's got a big arm, I know. So there's some scouts that really love the tools. He's a toolsy guy in the game parlance, but it hasn't he hasn't had the real big numbers at all. I mean, I think last year his batting average, I forgot what it was, but his batting average, it was like 220, 230, something like that. I mean, he just wasn't. He was really struggling.
Okay, last 2 guys. Only 2 non-roster outfielders at spring training. Whit Merrifield, he's been in the org for a while. And Travis,
looks like a game show host.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Whit Merrifield?
like smooth.
He really does. Yeah, he's got like this incredible hair, very thick and always.
It's a game show host name.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he legitimately looks
South
like a
Carolina.
Game show host.
Does he have sort of the?
No, he doesn't have that. I'm not talking about like that Southern boy thing. I think is what you're referring to. But he just, you'll see him. You'll see him in Surprise and tell me he does not look like a game show host.
Okay. And then last but not least, Travis Snyder, late pickup on a minor league deal, former kind of top prospect. The funny thing about Travis Snyder, and this may be inaccurate information, but I almost remember he was in the Blue Jays system right around the deal that the Zach Greinke trade was going down, and the first trade in 2010. And the Blue Jays sort of had a bunch of prospects where they were sort of in the game for Zach Greinke at the time.
Yeah.
And Snyder was one of those guys who was sort of could have been not necessarily a centerpiece, but he's like, the Lorenzo Cain of that of the Blue Jays package that they would have dangled for Greinke. So he's had sort of an interesting career. He actually had a pretty good year for the Pirates 2 years ago. Was like a serviceable outfielder and played like 135, 140 games. So
it's a really, I think, sort of the hitting version of what we were talking about with Dylan G and all. Like it's again,
low
not
risk,
that, not that Ned Yost pinch hits ever. Not that he really uses his bench, but that's a left-handed bat that they can bring in for a pinch hitting, something. It's depth, never hurts.
Yeah. Sam, when are you going down to spring training?
So you're putting me on the spot because I don't know. I'm going once for sure. I know the Sunday. I'm going to go the 3 or 4 days between the Big 12 tournament and the first round of the NCAAs, and then I'd like to go again, but I haven't decided on that. That's actually on my to-do list today.
Okay.
Would you like me to come early or late?
I don't care.
All right.
Whenever.
It might end up being late, but I don't know. A lot of moving parts, Rustin. Got a pregnant wife. A lot of stuff going on.
Okay. Well, we can leave it there.
All right.
As they say. Okay. This has been the Sports Beat KC podcast for Sam Mellinger and Chris Fickett. I'm Rustin Dodd. This will be coming out a few days before Pitchers and Catchers Report. So check out the coverage in the pages of the Kansas City Star and download the True Blue app and keep track of all the spring training coverage at kansascity.com. There'll be a ton of it. So signing off. We'll catch you later.
All right.